As an employer, as an employee, as a site in charge, or as a site safety practitioner, you must protect your workers from harm, from the risk of injury, from hazardous manual handling operations on your project site. Manual handling means transporting or supporting a load by hand or bodily force. Manual handling includes lifting, putting down, pushing, pulling, carrying, moving, holding, or restraining something or some load. A load might be an object, person, or an animal. In this training session, we'll discuss safety requirements for manual handling, how we can avoid injuries during manual handling operations on site, what are the most basic or common manual handling hazards, how we can prepare a suitable and sufficient risk assessment that can control manual handling activities or tasks on site. But the most important thing, we should consider what the law says about manual handling operations. This training session is beneficial for all supervisors and safety practitioners and the workers, those are involved practically in manual handling activities. But as usual, I would like to memorize you that you are on the platform of safety first life. If you are first time on this channel, kindly subscribe it and press the bell icon for all future notifications. And if you find the video informative, then like, comment, and share it with your friends and colleagues. The most important aspect of this training session is we are going to learn what are the legal requirements, are, in other words, what the law says about manual handling operations. Dear friends and fellows, the law sets out how employers must deal with risks from manual handling. There are three important points. Number one, avoid hazardous manual handling so far as is reasonably practicable. Number two, assess the risk of injury from any hazardous manual handling operations that cannot be avoided. And number three, reduce the risk of injury from hazardous manual handling operation to as low as reasonably practicable. Here, another important question is what is the meaning of hazardous manual handling operation? Or what activities might be called hazardous manual handling activities? But you also need to remember the weight of a load is important, though the law doesn't set specific weight limits. In some cases, you must provide information about the weight and position of the center of gravity of each load if there is a risk of injury and it is reasonably practicable to do this. Here, the main point is safety regulations and the legal requirements didn't mention the specific weight limit like 20 kg, 25 kg, 50 kg, or 15 kg. And this is the loophole where most of the employers or their representatives, like construction managers, project managers, site engineers, or site supervisory staff, they are going to play with the site labors. As we have mentioned, hazardous manual handling must be avoided. This is number one point of manual handling regulation. But the difficult thing is how to know this is a hazardous manual handling. We'll try to understand through examples of hazardous manual handling. Those may include number one, repeated, sustained, or high force. Number two, sustained awkward posture. Number three, repetitive movements. Number four, exposure to sustained vibration. Number five, handling people or animals. And number six, loads that are unstable, unbalanced, or hard to hold. Here, many important points: repetition, exposure, vibration, people or animal, and unstable load are unbalanced that is not easy to grip or to hold. If these are the conditions, even the weight is small, but all these examples are the part of manual handling operation, manual handling activities. And you need here the proper risk assessment and control measures. Otherwise, maybe you are going to face injury or manual handling incident on your work site. And once there are incidents, accidents in any way, accidents are not beneficial for the project, for project repute, for the company image, or even the most important aspect, production. So, as a health and safety practitioner, it is your responsibility to avoid injuries, harm, incidents, and accidents on your projects. After the identification of hazardous manual handling, let's learn now how we can avoid hazardous manual handling operations. There are 2 points. Number one, redesigning the task to avoid moving the load. And number two, automating or mechanizing the process. You need to understand the best time to decide about mechanization or automation is when you design plant or work systems or patterns. Design the layout of a process so there is very little movement of materials. In simpler words, if you are interested in mechanization or automation, you need to consider these important steps in the design stage. It is much easier at that time, but these are very difficult on the later stages of a project because later on there are budget issues, there is client and consultant involvement. Maybe you are delaying the project, you are in a hurry, and you don't have time for redesigning or automation. In the beginning, you can consider, for example, a conveyor, a pallet truck, an electric or hand powered hoist, or a lift truck to reduce the risk of harm, to prevent or reduce the chances of hazardous manual handling operations. Mechanical aids can also help reduce or eliminate risk from manual handling. But unfortunately, most of the time, even though the mechanical aids are available on the site, but the workers, they are busy in manual handling operations. The reason is they are inexperienced, they are young, they are not competent, and their supervisory staff, they don't care about their health and safety issues. If you cannot avoid manual handling operation, then you need proper assessment. Ultimately, you are responsible for the health and safety of your workers. You need to assess the risk of injury from any hazardous manual handling operations that cannot be avoided. You should consider the task, the load, the working environment, and the individual capability. For example, the postures adopted, how far the load is lifted, lowered, or carried, the frequency of the task, the weight of the load, the nature of the load, for example, hot, sharp, or slippery, cramped work areas, poor floor surfaces or conditions, poor lighting, extremes of temperature, and workers' strength, fitness, and underlying medical conditions. For example, a history of back problems. These are very important and crucial points. Without focusing on these important factors, you cannot make a risk assessment that can be suitable and sufficient. Also, you have to look out for workers breathing heavily and sweating, workers who complain of excessive fatigue, reluctance to do a particular task, the availability of equipment to help with a lift. If you cannot avoid hazardous manual handling operation on site, you need to consider all these points because it is your responsibility to control the risk to an acceptable level. Otherwise, it may cause injury or incident on your workplace. Let us learn now how we can reduce the risk of injury. Dear friends and fellows, you are on the platform of safety first life. Here, you must understand the measures to control risk will vary depending on the task. Reduce the risk of injury from hazardous manual handling operations you cannot avoid. Where possible, provide mechanical help. For example, a sack trolley or hoist. Where this is not reasonably practicable, explore changes to the task, the load, and the working environment. In this way, you can reduce the risk of injury, risk of manual handling incident. You can avoid back pain or strain and sprains. If manual lifting is the only option, you cannot use other options like automation or mechanization. Then there are things you can do to reduce the risk that may include number one, make the load smaller, lighter, and easier to grasp. Number two, break up large consignments into smaller loads. Number three, modify the workplace to reduce carrying distances, twisting movements, or the need to lift things from floor level or above shoulder height. Number four, change the work routine to avoid excessive work rates and tight deadlines. Number five, improve the environment, more space, better flooring, extra lighting, or changing the air temperature can make manual handling easier and safer. Number six, make sure the person doing the lifting has been trained to lift as safely as possible. As I told you, it is the responsibility of the individual as well as the employer. The workers, they should do their work safely, but how is it possible if they are trained, they are skilled, they are experienced, and they are competent? For competency, you need safety training. Dear friends and fellows, let us understand what is the importance of training with respect to manual handling operations on site. Training can be important in raising awareness and reducing risk, but it would not ensure safe manual handling on its own. You should first design the manual handling operations to be as safe as reasonably practicable. You should also monitor and review procedures to make sure workers understand and apply them. If you are hiring a trainer within the company or an external health and safety trainer, you need to make sure training should be relevant to the type of work carried out and should cover as a minimum number one, manual handling risk factors and how injuries can happen. Number two, how to use mechanical aids. Number three, how to carry out safe manual handling, including good handling practices or techniques. Number four, systems of work relevant to the worker's task and the environment. Number five, practical work so the trainer can identify anything the trainee is not doing safely and put it right. Number six, the content of any training in good handling technique should be tailored to the tasks the workers carried out on their site in their project. You may need to get professional help from a safety consultant who has specialty in this domain. And after the training, you need to make assessment to ensure the benefits of the training, whether the training was effective or not. Dear friends and fellows, let us discuss now what may happen or what are the consequences of a poor manual handling operation. There are a few important points you need to memorize that might be the ultimate result of poor manual handling activity on site. Poor manual activity can cause number one, back injuries, number two, strains and sprains, number three, soft tissue injuries to wrists, arms, shoulders, neck, or legs. Number four, MSDs, musculoskeletal disorders. Number five, hernias. And number six, slip, trip, and fall injuries. These all are the consequences, outcome, the negative impact of poor handling on site. You need to avoid all these by following safety requirements as per the recommendations of your risk assessment and as per the guidelines provided by the safety regulations with respect to manual handling operations. The most important point, as I told you in the beginning, sometimes as a safety practitioner, you are insisting the site team, project team to follow safety, their manual handling operations as per your knowledge and information is not safe. But they are saying where it is written that risk assessment is mandatory for manual handling. At that time, if you know the law, if you know about the regulations, you can keep their mouth shut. But if you are just quoting, but you don't know where exactly you can find the regulation, it will make a trouble for you as well. You must know about the safety rules, laws, and regulations. The law, the manual handling operations regulations, requires every employer to avoid, assess, and reduce the risk of injury from manual handling. You need to make a suitable and sufficient risk assessment and risk management through the implementation of controls in addition to continuous site safety monitoring, inspection, and effective health surveillance programs. Dear friends and fellows, safety training session about manual handling and the regulatory requirements is over. If you have any question, please ask in the comment section. Thanks for watching and don't forget to like, comment and share the video. Hope to see you soon with a new HSC tutorial. Until then, take care. Good luck and goodbye.